Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe. So I came across an interesting quote from President Harold B. Lee. This is from a BYU Idaho devotional. At the time, it was Rick's College, but it's on BYU Idaho's website under devotionals. This is October 25th, 1973. And I'm not going to play the recording, but I transcribed it. But if you want to listen to it, we're going to be reading from the part of his talk that's at the 14-minute and 25-second mark, if you want to fast forward to that and listen to it for yourself. So this goes along with the idea of the cleansing of America. It's been a while since we've talked about this. I don't think I've done a video on this for a few weeks, maybe even a month. I'm not sure. But I've been trying to get to the bottom of this idea that the United States has to be destroyed before the second coming. It has to happen, or it's inevitable that it's going to happen. And I can't find anywhere that says that. Nowhere credible, anyway. So far, just to catch you up in case you're new, I have this spreadsheet called Quotes, False Prophecies, and Visions. These are things that people typically point to when they say, oh, look, America has to be destroyed. Missouri has to be destroyed. And when you actually do the research and you find the primary sources and you find other related quotes from people in authority, you realize that these are false, or they're misrepresented, or they're not verifiable. So I'm not going to go over these here. I've already done videos about them. I have these 4 videos, this one, this one, this one, and this one. I'll put the links for these videos in the description box below, but you can also go to my spreadsheet and read the sources that I have. So in column C, I have whatever the supposed vision or prophecy is supposed to be. Okay, like the actual source where you can find it. I have it right here. And then to the right, I have the quotes or the times that the church has tried to put these things down and help everybody understand this is not a true prophecy. Probably the most famous is this one that's supposedly by John Taylor, or sometimes people say it's Joseph F. Smith. And the reason why is because you can find it in Wilford Woodruff's journal, but he didn't know who wrote it. When you look at the journal, he says, like the first part of it says I, and then he leaves a blank because he worked in the church history department, whatever that was called at the time. And he came across this, and so he jotted it down. And so now for all of time, people look at that and say, oh, this is a valid prophecy. And it's not. And we know that because we have 2 presidents of the church that have said that it's not. Joseph F. Smith and Joseph Fielding Smith. And then the other one, well, this one actually may be bigger. I don't know, is the yellow dog prophecy. People think that Missouri has to be destroyed, and it doesn't. The source comes from right here. This was said in General Conference. You have J. Golden Kimball of the 70, who's quoting Heber C. Kimball, supposedly. And this is where you find the yellow dog prophecy. But later on, the church published an article saying, no, that was a misremembered prophecy. It has to do with the destruction of Jackson County after the Civil War. And so you have this other variant that's probably gone through the telephone game, and people misremembered what it was. The dates don't match up. They don't make sense. So anyway, so I have these 4, okay? So they're either false or they're just completely unverified. There's like no substance to them. Okay. So the thing about it is that this whole idea that America has to be destroyed, it brings a lot of fear, a lot of doom and gloom. And it's the opposite of what the prophets and apostles have actually been saying. And that's where we're going to go over here. This quote from President Harold B. Lee. Before I read it, I think it'd be helpful to look at the scriptures. Let's go to the Book of Mormon, which, yes, I know, the Book of Mormon has warnings for the United States because this is a choice land. But it doesn't say that America has to be destroyed or that it's inevitable. But really quick, I want to point out, I think sometimes the mentality that goes into this like doom and gloom entertainment and why people are drawn to it, because it is primarily, I think, entertainment. I'm not saying that there aren't genuine people that believe these things, but I think the people that consume them are looking for excitement and entertainment. And I think it's this mentality right here. This is Jacob 4, verses 14 and 15. Behold, the Jews were a stiff-necked people, and they despised the words of plainness. Let me stop right there. So a lot of times when you look at the doom and gloom entertainment, it's complicated. There's all these timelines. There's hidden codes in the Bible that people think, exist. And it's just really convoluted, very, supposedly esoteric and complicated. And yet here we have examples like what I'm about to read you from prophets and apostles who are speaking in plainness. And yet sometimes we choose these little theories that people come up with, authors, YouTubers, influencers, whatever. We prefer to go with that rather than what the prophets are plainly telling us that you cannot misunderstand. So, but behold, the Jews were a stiff-necked people, and they despised the words of plainness and killed the prophets and sought for things that they could not understand. Wherefore, because of their blindness, which blindness came by looking beyond the mark. So in other words, they were expecting fireworks and grandeur and power and stuff when Christ came. They had like these unrealistic expectations of like the spectacular, that which pleases the senses and that kind of thing, right? They had a preconceived notion of how things were supposed to happen according to their own private interpretation of the scriptures, rather than listening to the plain words of the prophets. So came by looking beyond the mark, they must needs fall. For God hath taken away his plainness from them, and delivered unto them many things which they cannot understand, because they desired it. And because they desired it, God hath done it, that they may stumble. And now I, Jacob, am led by the Spirit unto prophesying, for I perceive by the workings of the Spirit which is in me, that the stumbling of the Jews, by the stumbling of the Jews, they will reject the stone upon which they might build and have safe foundation. So this was the kind of mentality that prevented them from recognizing Christ when he came. And the same mentality exists today. And it prevents people from realizing that the second coming is close. And that's something that is plainly being said by President Nelson and others. In plainness, without secret codes, without exciting interpretations of prophecies. It's just being said in plainness. So let's not make the same mistake and look at these false and unverified supposed prophecies. And let's listen to what the prophets and apostles actually say. So when we're thinking about the future of America and the idea that it has to be cleansed, which makes no sense because the entire world is going to be cleansed when the burning happens. Let's see how our prophets and apostles talk about the United States and what attitude we should actually have rather than that which is provided by the doom and gloom entertainment. So this is President Harold B. Lee in the BYU Idaho devotional. And he says, I think we must be on the optimistic side. This is a great nation. This is a great country. This is the most favored of all lands. While it is true, there are dangers and difficulties that lie ahead of us, we must not assume that we are going to lie down and watch the country go to ruin. We should not be heard to predict ills and calamities for the nation, which many people do. I hear it all the time in the comment section. We should not be heard to predict ills and calamities for the nation. On the contrary, we should be providing optimistic support of the nation. You must remember, brethren, that this church is one of the most powerful agencies for the progress of the world, and we should all bear our testimonies so that we all sound with one voice. We must tell the world how to feel about this land and this nation and bear our testimonies about the great mission and destiny that it has. Now pay attention to this. It is the negative, pessimistic comments about the nation that do as much harm as anything to the country today. The negative, pessimistic comments do as much harm as anything, according to a prophet, in words of plainness. And yet, we still consume or produce the doom and gloom entertainment based on our own personal interpretations of things and based on our own brand of theory. All right, continuing. Brethren, we must tell them in a positive way what they should be doing. We should not be so concerned about finding out what is wrong with America, but we should be finding out what is right about America and should be speaking optimistically and enthusiastically about America. Well, we are definitely not following this advice right now. I've been guilty of it. We just point to, all these little groups with different identities that go on parades and that are held up by certain parts of the country. And we talk about how evil America has become and how sinful. And that's true. Some of it has. Some, not everybody, obviously. But we just keep looking at how we don't like the direction that the country is going. And then we just give up and we just say, well, America has to be cleansed. No. All right, continuing. Yes, men may fail, but this nation won't fail. I have faith in America, and you and I must have faith in America if we understand the teachings of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So there it is. Again, it comes from this source right here. And gosh, they have this archive that's just full of all these different talks. I wish I could go through all of them, somehow just like instantly download them to my mind. That would be amazing. But let me just read a couple other things. We're going to talk about the Constitution hanging by a thread, because people have all sorts of assumptions about what that's supposed to look like. And actually, Harold B. Lee has something to say about it. This is when he was in the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. This is the April 1942 General Conference. And then after this, we're going to read a short thing by President Oakes. Okay, so Elder Harold B. Lee of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. But beyond all that, the Latter-day Saints have a responsibility that may be better understood when we recall the prophecy of Joseph Smith, who declared that the time would come when the destiny and the Constitution of these United States would hang, as it were, by a thread, and that this people, the sons of Zion, would rise up and save it from threatened destruction. That's from Journal of Discourses, Volume 7, page 15. Now listen to this, okay? When you think about how you think that prophecy is supposed to be fulfilled, listen to this. I want to ask you to consider the meaning of that prophecy in the light of the declaration of the prophets of the Book of Mormon times, who declared that this land was a choice land above all other lands and would be free from bondage and from captivity and from all other nations under heaven, if they will but serve the God of this land, even our Savior, Jesus Christ. This is a people whom the Lord has chosen to preach the gospel of righteousness. Okay? Preach the gospel. I should highlight that. We talk of security in this day, and yet we fail to understand that here on this temple block, we have standing the holy temple, wherein we may find the symbols by which power might be generated that will save this nation from destruction. Okay, so he's talking about preaching the gospel. He's talking about going to the temple in connection with the Constitution hanging by a thread. And yet you have these different theories that come out that, that the leaders of the country are going to come to Salt Lake City and be like, what do? We don't know what to do. I don't think it's going to be that. It's going to be us changing hearts and building more temples and growing as a church, changing people's core values, not us doing the changing, teaching them, persuading them, and then them choosing to change themselves and to become disciples of Christ. Okay, so therein may be found the fullness of the blessings of the priesthood in the temple. Yesterday morning, as we assembled and heard the broadcast from that place, broadcasting to the world a message, It to me was significant of the prophecy that from this place the law shall go forth to the world, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. The spires on the eastern towers of the temple are to represent the presidency of the Melchizedek priesthood. The spires to the west, the presidency of the Aaronic priesthood. The gilded figure of the angel Moroni symbolizes the preaching of the gospel to the world. Excuse me. The gospel must be preached as a witness under the direction of the holy priesthood. Okay, the preaching. Why don't I have that highlighted already? Okay, sorry. Anyway, fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. Therein lies the responsibility of this church in sanctifying this people and this nation, that they might be spared the judgments that otherwise might come upon them were it not for the preaching of the humble elders of this church. That's how we save the Constitution. We preach the gospel to all that will listen. So that's our responsibility. And then there's this last thing I want to share. This is from President Dallin H. Oaks of the First Council and the First Presidency. This is the April 2021 General Conference in his talk called Defending Our Divinely Inspired Constitution. Our belief in divine inspiration gives Latter-day Saints a unique responsibility to uphold and defend the United States Constitution and principles of constitutionalism wherever we live. It's like outside the United States. We should trust in the Lord and be positive about this nation's future. You guys, it's as simple as that. We're being told in plainness. So listen to the prophets and the apostles when they speak to us in plainness, instead of turning to doom and gloom entertainment that's convoluted, complicated, loosely grounded in people's personal interpretation of scriptures, primarily. You guys, it's really important that we do our own research. Like, I love that you're watching my channel. It's great. And there's so many good church channels out there. There's so many. And I support them all, even the ones that promote doom and gloom, because even though I think they're wrong with certain things, I'm sure that they're doing more good than they are bad. Okay. So, but let's make sure when you watch my stuff, make sure that you do your own research. I show you where you can find these things, and you can go and verify by yourself. And then beyond that, you can go and do more research. And I think that all of us should be putting together our own system of gathering gospel information. I like spreadsheets because, I like to see things in timeline order. I like, to organize things according to topic. So this is what I like to do. But please do the same thing in your own way, whether it's with Word documents or if you prefer to have hard copies of things, just do something. Because if you just sit and you just watch people or you read people's books, that's not really research. You will learn things, but you have to get down to the original sources and really research a topic. Don't just go to like some blog and be like, oh, this is a vision of John Taylor, and then just take that blog's word for it. You can't do that, because as it turns out, like I said, Joseph Fielding Smith and then 2 times Joseph F. Smith said that this was a false prophecy. It's anonymous. Nobody knows who wrote it. And a prophet has said, nope, that is not a right prophecy. And yet it still gets circulated because people don't do their own research. So please research these things. Take your gospel study seriously, and don't just be passive, and don't just like glance over things. Like, dig in. Okay, so that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.